Yeah. Okay. I think it's time to start the panel discussion session. As Jenny kindly introduced, my name is Kaisa Karttunen, and she was a bit hesitant if she can call me a professor. Yes, she can. I just started my new career as a professor of practice on food security at the University of Helsinki. Actually, I started it yesterday. So I'm a very, very fresh professor. But I would like to mention one thing from my history. It was in 1985. When the Farmers' Union recruited me, I was still a student at that time. And the Finnish Farmers' Union recruited me to put together a first development cooperation project of the farmers' organization. It was a great experience for a young student. How to organize a project, how to work with the Finnish farmers, how to make the Finnish farmers to collect funds for a project in Africa, and then make my first visit to Africa and learn to know that the planet is quite huge, and meet African farmers and organizations, and the government, and gradually starting to learn that what it is all about. And I worked for a couple of years for the farmers' organization on that specific project, and then I felt that I'm already ready to go to Africa and start working from that end. And here I am now, after all these years. And I'm very pleased to be here today to moderate the panel discussion. We have about 1 hour, a bit less than an hour, more or less. I will give a chance to you during the discussion to ask questions from the panelists, but we start with our own questions. But please don't hesitate to raise your hand if something comes to your mind, so that we make it as interactive as possible. So we have here 4 very experienced panelists. I'm very proud to moderate this team. We have Dr. Valto. I will give them a bit later a chance to introduce themselves more thoroughly. We have Mr. Kastory Timbula. We have, instead of Birgit Nevala, we have here Eelis Hemberg. Birgit unfortunately didn't feel well, but instead of her, he sent here Eelis, whom we all know quite well. Actually, we're very happy to have him as replacement. And then we have here Kati Partanen. And I think that we start by giving them a chance to introduce themselves briefly, where they come from, which organization they represent. And I want to place the one specific question already now. While after introducing yourself, would you kindly briefly reflect your perspective to sustainability? What does it mean to you and your organization? And responsible production. What does it mean? What's the specific meaning of this? Sustainability and responsible production. And we start with Anne, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. Like said, my name is Anne Valto, and I come from Finnfund. And for those of you who have not heard of Finnfund, Finnfund is a development financing institute based here in Finland, Helsinki, and having also an office in Nairobi. We are nearly fully owned by the Finnish government, and we operate with the private sector companies in developing and emerging economies. Myself, like I said, I'm a doctor in forestry, and did my research in among smallholder farmers. It's been always close to my heart, coming from a small farm myself. And I think that sustainable, responsible production, personally, it's based on the principle that already my mother taught to me. Always leave the places at least in as good condition as they were when you entered the room or place or whatever. I think it applies to the planet as well. And we should not harm the future generations options by doing harm for our planet. So rather leave it in a better condition than poor. And I think Finnfund is a good place to work with that principle in mind, because also the organization is applying very much sustainability principles in their activities, trying to achieve positive impact on the planet and on the SDGs.
Thank you very much. Then Mr. Kastory, Timbula, please.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Kastory Matembele Timbula, the CEO for the Tanzania Tree Growers Association Union, which is a member-based organization working to fight for interests of the members in terms of social and economic well-being. Thank you. In regards with the context she has just put ahead of us is we as farmers from Tanzania, and especially Tanzania Tree Growers Association Union, we consider responsible production not being a self-centered approach, and instead we put more people, environment, ecosystem, and biodiversity, and marketed consumers at the center of the planning and the production and the distribution channels, taking into account that doing against those will automatically impact ourselves and influence our businesses. So we also consider working in an inclusive way, bringing together different groups to make it more sustainable and to handle the planet that we were given by God to the coming generations, as we were given the right when we were given by God. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Then Eelis, your turn.
Yes, hello everyone. My name is Eelis Hemberg. I work as a program officer at Finnpartnership, which is the Finnish business partnership program financed by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and we work mostly with, as the name implies, private sector development. So our clients are mostly Finnish companies seeking to extend their operations to developing countries or to import products from developing countries to Finland. In terms of sustainability from our perspective, it is at the very center of our work. Our main target or indicator that we work with is sustainable jobs. And the word sustainable is already in that indicator for a good reason, because merely job creation in itself does not necessarily bring a lot of added benefit to the people that we wish to help, the beneficiaries in the target countries where our projects are done. And for that reason, it is at the core of our evaluation criteria for the applications we receive and for the financing that we make. And we also monitor this work related to sustainability, environmental and social sustainability throughout the life cycle of the project. So it is not merely at it is at the very core of what we do, and it is a non-negotiable item that cannot be separated from the work of our projects.
Thank you so much. And then we have Kati, please.
Thank you, Kaisa. Yes, hello everyone, and thank you for the invitation to attend this panel. Yes, my name is Kati Partanen. I'm a farmer and forest owner from Finland, in Iisalmi, about 500 kilometers north from here, from Helsinki. I have studied agriculture economics, agricultural policy in Helsinki University, and I'm also member of board in MTK, and also member of board in the World Farmers Organization, where I'm representing European farmer organizations. And I think for me personally, but also both for MTK and for WFO, the responsibility and sustainability, they are cornerstones of every activity. They are I think they are cornerstones in agriculture and forestry, in family farming, in private forest owners, but they are also in the farmer organizations, the cornerstones. And I think I would very much share the opinion with my colleagues in the panel. And I think like this thinking over generations and leaving everything in better condition for the next generation is good value. But I would also want to remind all dimensions of the sustainability. So it's important economical, social, and ecological sustainability. But I would also like to highlight the inclusiveness, which was raised in the presentation of FFD. Inclusiveness and democracy, they are also like cornerstones in sustainability and responsibility.
Thank you so much. So we heard there are many dimensions and there are many views towards sustainability and responsible production. There are also several different expectations and requirements that are set for agriculture and forestry, for example, as regards their contribution to food security and their contribution to nutrition and producing high quality raw material for different types of value chains and industries. Farmers and forest producers, they are supposed to use natural resources in a sustainable way while earning their living and their families' living from the agricultural land and livestock and forests. And then there's also the social dimension, social expectations of sustainability, which requires, for example, paying attention to gender equality and providing decent jobs to agricultural labor force. So there are a lot of expectations. And somehow I feel that responsibility and responsible and sustainable production, they are catchwords of today. Wherever we go, we hear these words. There are a bit different views, different meanings, different weight put into different dimensions of sustainability in different parts. I know, for example, Finnfund and Finnpartnership, you don't work so much directly with farmers, but the companies you work with and the organizations you work with, they have very close links to farmers. So I think that you are in a good position here to reflect also those aspects. And we don't talk only about the sustainability and responsibility requirements of farmers, but also the other parts of the value chains. So who is processing the food, who is selling the food, who is consuming the food. There are many different aspects and dimensions there, and we try to make some sense out of all that during this discussion. And now I would like to go to the first real question. And this is directed to Kati and Kastory, especially. Would you have any good examples how farmers and forest producers manage all these different requirements? What are the hard decisions that the farmers and forest producers need to make? And Kati, perhaps you could start.
Oh, thank you. Basically agriculture is, well, it's simply combining like work and assets in different kind of combinations, but they can differ in different farms in many ways. So every farmer, every forest owner, we make the decisions based on the conditions, based on the where we are, what are the assets in the farm. But of course, they are also based on the strategy what is chosen in the farm or in the company, also in other parts of value chain. And for example, we make the cultivation plans, and in the forest management, we have the forest management plan, which is made by the local forest owners association or forest management association. But I think it's very much difficulties now. Well, recently we have faced a huge rise of costs, for example, and it has forced us to change some strategies, because the rise of costs, and then we have to compare what kind of price would we get from the products in the markets. So it has forced us to make actually quite quick changes. During some months, we had to modify our strategy. And of course, yeah, following the markets, but also we sell majority of our products in our farm. We sell directly to some other farmers, but also to the local small mill. So for us, it's quite easy to have the negotiation directly. But I think it's a bit more difficult to have the negotiations in the input with the input providers, because they are usually big actors. But of course, we can change something in the farm level. And I think one of the most difficult decision is related to investments, because quite often, especially the big investments in farm level, they have very long payback time. And usually the revenues from the agricultural products for the farmer, they are very slow. So it needs very much consideration and very much advice, and of course training from the farmers to make the decisions, because it's huge. You have to think for 10 or 20 years ahead. The investments, and even maybe decide already something, thinking about the next generation. What do they want? Are they taking over the farm? So I think there are quite often the other actors in the value chain, they don't understand that, for example, that these investments, really it's huge long-term decisions what we make.
Well, what would you like to add, Kastory, from the forest producer's perspective? How do you balance between these different requirements that are set to forest producers?
Thanks. I would like to say that we are all here dancing the music of climate change. And as forest producers and farm producers, we are also part of that. We all have to make our decisions which will, in one way or another, suit the conditions that we are in. As farmers, we are the first people to experience the impacts of climate change and food insecurity. If we plan and implement or execute in a way that is not in favor of the situation. So as farmers, we have the key things that we take into account when we plan and we produce, we market, and whatever. One of those is to think of sustainability, as I said earlier, and in connection with the climate change, and these include the sustainable agriculture, land management, that we plan so that we can produce and harvest according to the costs that we invest. Together with this, we are using the Building Resilience tool, which is a tool that makes the farmers master their environment and help them to be prepared according to the changes they experience, and plan the costs according to what they want to produce. And this makes it very hard for the farmers, because all this adds the costs to their production, while the prices, the costs and the prices, in most cases, they do not match. The costs of production increases more than the increase on the prices. And this makes the life for the farmers a little bit difficult. As an organization, then, we have to devise mechanisms for farmers to try to reduce the costs and increase the margin for their produce, like bringing them together for marketing, collective marketing, and which also has a benefit to the buyers which, by reducing the costs to source the materials from the farmers. These decisions are sometimes difficult for farmers to come together because of the limited land they have, the limited resources they have, and they have also to change from the common practices of extensive farming to intensive farming. Intensive farming normally involve technology, involve more technical know-how, involve a lot of inputs and other things, which also adds costs to the farmers. And also, against if we compare this to the normal or the previous practices where farmers had the tendency of clearing and farming or shifting agriculture, now things are becoming so tight that they have to spend on a specific area for production, which means also they have to increase the use of inputs, especially the fertilizers, which also increases the costs of production. So as we talk of responsible production and sustainability, we need also to think of the costs that are incurred by the farmers against the prices or the return on the cost they have invested. Thank you.
Thank you. Very important views from your perspective. Then I would like to ask Anne and Eelis, maybe Anne can start. When you finance businesses in developing countries, and Eelis, when you provide partnership support to agri and forestry businesses, how do you deal with these sustainability and responsibility issues? Are they kind of a condition? How do you monitor? How do you supervise that your companies and your partnership organizations, that they really take them seriously? So can you provide some good examples, for example?
Thank you. Indeed, I can, and I can also tell that actually there are 3 pillars in our investment process from the beginning till the end, and they are, of course, financial one. We are a financing institution. Then there's sustainability pillar, and then there's impact pillar. So it's really integrated into our approach in the whole process. And to actually the lens through which we look at the sustainability is, first of all, the risk perspective, and that there we actually use quite extensive, quite thorough international framework, the IFC performance standard, which covers various topics, themes of sustainability. And we expect that our investee companies, they will within the investment period reach the levels that are required in those standards. So that's kind of a risk side, that we look at the risks that the business can cause to environment and to society. But then there's increasingly also the other side of the coin, that what kind of risks the environment can cause to the business, and that links strongly to the climate change, for example. So that we need to take into consideration also the climate risks that could harm the business, and how well they are taken into consideration in the business model. So I would say that it's essential part, and it's always discussed when we discuss about our investments. It's monitored throughout the investment period. The companies are expected to report to us against the environmental and social criteria that we give them. And also we, in most cases, I would say nearly in all cases, we also we formulate some requirements for the investee companies, that these are the activities, these are the actions you need to put in place so that you will achieve the sustainability levels we expect from you to as being a responsible investee. So yes, it's definitely in the core, and it's gaining even more and more weight. There are new dimensions all the time introduced into the whole kind of a concept of sustainability. How it was in the past, it was much thinner package of paper what you had to look at. Now it's just on a yearly basis, I would say there are new tools, new indicators, new ways of looking at things. So it's gaining even more weight all the time.
I have one additional question to you. Do you provide any capacity development to these companies that you finance in terms of sustainability issues?
No, not directly yet, but we should in the end of this year to certain sectors, and hopefully next year also to at least to our forestry and agri investments be able to provide more concrete support and technical assistance so that they can then build their capacities, for example, in sustainable value chains. And there we need to thank the EU guarantee funds that we are likely to achieve, but not signed yet. So let's not celebrate it yet, but we're working on it.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Yeah.
And then, Eelis, would you like to share with us how is it when you try to promote these partnerships, North and South partnerships?
Yes, so in the case, we actually, our program is administered by Finnfund. So we are a part of the Finnfund company as our team located there in the same building. So we actually share a lot of the processes that Anne already mentioned earlier. So for instance, the IFC performance standards is something that we also use as a part of our evaluation. And we actually get assistance from the Finnfund environmental and social experts in evaluating the projects. So it is indeed, as I mentioned earlier, it is done at the very beginning already when we make our financing decision. We per se cannot make a financing decision to a project that has unresolved, unmitigated risks related to environmental and social sustainability. So it is indeed something that we do there. And then we provide, for instance, support services. We pay for, first of all, as a part of the actual project budget quite often, an ENS appraisal is a very common tool that we finance. Second of all, we also provide free of charge these kind of consulting vouchers for our projects, which also help in sort of capacity building for the Finnish client. And then that knowledge can then be shared with the local partner as well. Also, in some cases, the local partner will directly benefit from our funding in terms of the training related to ENS matters and sustainability matters, climate change mitigation, things like this. We do finance a little bit different types of projects, so it's hard to say maybe an overall approach that is always taken. It does vary a little bit, for instance, by whether the project in agriculture or forestry is related to imports to Finland or whether it is products intended for the local market. So there is a bit of a difference. But overall, the common theme is that all projects that we finance, and also I forgot to mention that the Foreign Ministry, when they make their financing decisions for our projects, actually quite often mandate or recommend some of these findings that we have found in the analysis that we have done to the ministry. So it is indeed a thing that it takes throughout the project life cycle. Our projects are only 2 years long, and the maximum that we can finance per project, per target country, per company is 400,000. So we're not talking about a huge amount of funding at once. But nonetheless, for that amount of money, I would say that our processes are quite robust, and we are trying to develop them, of course, further all the time.
Thank you. And what I really like, as you said, that you provide capacity development also to the Finnish companies or the Finnish partners in these partnerships. I think it's a good starting point to see that we have our kind of a home ground is well functioning, and they follow the principles and rules and sometimes necessary also in Finland. So we have already heard from our panelists that farmers and forest producers, they often struggle with profitability problems, the cost of production increasing, and the market prices of the produce are not following the same speed. And now we have these different new existing and new environmental requirements, for example, sustainability requirements. So are the prices that the farmers get from their products and forest producers get from their products, are these new requirements reflected on those prices at the moment? What is your view? I ask from Kati and Kastory first.
Do you want to start, or?
Yes, I can. I can say no. And capital letter no. Because when the requirements are stipulated, they do not take into consideration of all the costs involved in producing a certain crop. They do not take into consideration the differences in environment, geographical locations, distances from the farm to the market, infrastructures, differences, and other things. They do not take into considerations on the impact of climate change or what is going to happen during the production process up to the market. So the farmers find themselves, they are in a situation that they are the most affected group. And with that one, sometimes it leads to people to change their businesses or to live out from farming and go to other simple businesses or petty businesses, which in most cases has also impact on the lives of the people because they start a new living style, which was not experienced or thought of before. So I think we need to have, when we formulate these things, to have also the inputs from the farmers themselves, to have the experience of what farmers are going through, to have also the experience and forecasts of what will happen in future. Take, for instance, at the moment, the prices of fertilizers are skyrocketing. Mm-hmm. But the prices of crops, produce, they are not increasing to a pace that the prices of inputs has increased. The cost of production and the cost of transport, as a result of the increase the cost of fuel and other things, they didn't take into consideration of what the farmers are going to face. So to me, as a farmer, I say the farmers are on the disadvantaged side and is affecting their livelihood to a situation that we are creating an environment where farmers will always keep on being less and less profitable. Farming is becoming less and less profitable, though the demand for the farmers' produce, demand for food and other things is on the increase. So they are going in the opposite directions. Mm-hmm. We need to see how we can balance this. Thank you.
Thank you. You have something to add, Kati, on this, or you mostly agree?
I think this was very well said, and I also have to say that frankly, often no, it's not often compensating. There are, of course, we have some cases, for example, some projects, some subsidy systems, where there is compensation available for the new requirements, but usually often that project or certain period, it's it seemed as a new normal. And then we come back to the same low price as before. And even though it might be producing with the higher costs. And I think quite often the problem is that the consumers who buy the product, they don't often know what is the difference between different products. Basically, the biggest or the most important information they get from the product in the shop is the price. Yeah. And it's quite difficult to compare the different products, and especially it's difficult to know what is happening in the in the primary production side and what does the farmer really get. And I think it's like it's really important to improve cooperation among farmers, to increase their bargaining power, but also it's important to in legislation it's important to know that farmers are usually the most vulnerable in the value chain. So legislation should especially protect farmers and especially smallholders. And I think it's important when, for example, creating different kind of new programs, it's really important to involve farmer organizations to the decision-making process and the planning process. So not designing something only from the governance point of view or from big value chain actors' point of view, but really involve farmer organizations into the decision-making.
So do you ever discuss these issues with those companies that you deal with, Anne, for example, that you are financing companies in agriculture and forestry? So are these questions ever, you do come across with them, the prices the producers get from their products?
That's part of the social sustainability discussion also, that what kind of price they can pay for the farmers. And well, I can only agree with fellow panelists, and that in most cases the compensation is not necessarily there, especially if the companies are producing for the local market or for emerging economy markets. So there's no that consumer willingness to pay the price. It can't be integrated into the product price, etc., etc. So in that sense, it's a tricky one. And even here in the global north, I would say, yes, there's been more and more awareness and recognition of for example, different kind of certificates that demonstrate sustainability. So in that sense, yes, there might be a price premium if you're producing for export markets for the global north. But again, that's something where people are saving money now when there's economic turbulence. So you pick the cheap product. So what can you do there? But on the other hand, then I'm also referring to the systemic change that our keynote speaker, Dr. Penttilä, referred to, that in the end, actually, if you can take a little bit longer term perspective, those more sustainable practices are actually economically more, they are better economically in the longer term. The tricky part is that if you're relying on a smallholder supply chain, with that little income they make, they can't afford to make that investment for the transition. And that's where then the additional support and financing is needed to actually help them to invest in those better methods that are also environmentally more sustainable and improve their long-term performance.
Thank you. Eelis, would you like to add something?
Yes, maybe to just add a perspective from the consumer and market perspective here in Finland. Yeah, as mentioned, it is a tricky problem, this demand for more responsible products. But I think that demand is nonetheless there. We're seeing it in the fact that a lot of our applicant companies work in that type of operation. A lot of our applicants are small and medium-sized enterprises, so for them, usually they cannot compete on price on anything, let alone for something like agricultural production or forestry. So in those cases, usually it's quality and it is responsibility that they can use to build up that niche for themselves in an oftentimes very competitive market, if you're, for instance, talking about agricultural imports into Finland. So it can be challenging, but that's usually the way forward, in my opinion. for instance, we have supported several coffee production projects where we have found that a small Finnish company working directly with smallholder farmers and farmers organizations, that is a very good recipe. It really works. And we would like to see more of those types of projects, in fact, so feel free to talk to me afterwards. I would be more than happy to tell you about what we can facilitate there. Mm-hmm. But yes, absolutely, I think there is a challenge, and that price generation for the producer is indeed a very challenging problem. But one solution would be this kind of niche production, quality production for the Finnish market. There is increasing demand nonetheless here.
This is interesting. Then, of course, we have all these mechanisms like payment for ecosystem services. We have the carbon credits, different schemes on that, other mechanisms to compensate for the extra work or maybe lower yield the farmer gets when farming in an environmentally sustainable way. So, do you have any views or any experiences? Any of you who would like to reflect on this? Do they work? What are the problems with the payments of ecosystem services or carbon credits? Have you come across in any of your projects or your organizations? Anna, I can see you want to start.
I have at least an example, an early one, but and not actually directly with smallholder producers, but that's something we are working on now with our forestry companies. That the existing carbon financing can also be channeled to enhance the environmental restoration work. So kind of a combination of different kind of environmental objectives is linked to the same package. So we as a Finnfund, we are compensating our operational emissions from our travels, from our office, all that. We are buying carbon credits from a forestry company in Nicaragua, which is then doing restoration activities along the river buffer zones and so forth, actually to enhance the environmental integrity, I would say, in the region, which is very high on biodiversity, valuable environment as such. So that's an example how it can happen, and I know that FFD also has worked with tree growers to integrate this carbon financing to their business model. So it can support, it can help, but I think in longer run we also need to look at other actors like the governments. For example, the new global biodiversity framework refers to those harmful subsidies, which are still very widely paid globally, especially in the developing world. And there needs to be a shift in the mindset that what do you support with your subsidies, so that you would actually take the money from the harmful ones and then finance that transition to the more sustainable practices. So I think there are many sources of finance for that. It can't be only the consumer loan. It can't be only through certification. It can't be only the private financing, but various financing sources should be actually combined to actually make the change happen.
Yeah. Before I give the floor to Kati, I want to advertise that there was a very nice piece of article about this very project in Nicaragua that Anne just mentioned. It is in the Maaseudun Tulevaisuus newspaper about 2 weeks ago or something like that.
Yeah, Friday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I saw it and I read it, and I was very impressed because they really try to see how to put these different aspects of sustainability together. How to restore the environment and still make it economically profitable.
And those who don't read Finnish can go also to our website. There's a story about the same company, MLR.
Excellent, very good. So we'll all do it after this event. So anybody else, Kati, wanted to say something about this aspect?
Yeah. I just want to add that, for example, FFD has this FFD Hope, one of these compensation possibilities. But also in Finland, MTK has been active to be involved in the development of the compensation methods, which really benefit the farmers. And the result really comes to the farmer or forest owner level, because that's I think that's where we have to be quite critical, that when seeing some kind of for example compensation methods or mechanisms, to see that is it really working and is it really going to the grassroots level.
Good. And then Kastory, please.
Okay, thanks. When you look at it generally, you find that the carbon credits, one way or another, is excluding the smallholders and it's favoring the big companies. And this is in different ways. For instance, the costs involved for smallholders to be registered, the technical know-how engaged, the monitoring costs that are involved, it seems to the smallholders to be, at the end of the day, it will not give them a return, an expected return. Instead, they will use a lot of money to get registered, to get the consultants to help them to develop all the required conditions and to do the monitoring, and finally, sometimes even before they get registered, they find themselves already tired and they give up. So we need also to see, as she just said, the mechanisms that are favorable to smallholders, that probably when we devise things, putting the big fish and the small fish in one basket, then always the big fish will eat the small fish. And we find that the smallholders they do not benefit as it was thought to be in the beginning and in the formulation of these things. So the other thing is this can be on country-wise situation. Most of the countries has found that carbon credits is also a source of income for them, revenues. So they have developed policies that do not favor also the smallholders, but they favor the big companies. The smallholders are also in trouble because at high level, worldwide, they are not part of it, although they are considered to be the beneficiary of it. At the country level, you find the policies also, they are not in favor of the smallholders, and they are not more inclusive, taking into account different groups of the forest owners, the disabled, the women, and other groups. So you find them, they stay aside looking what is happening in the ground. They are not the players of the thing itself. So unless things are changed, the way I see now, farmers, smallholders will continue not to benefit from the carbon credits.
That's very sad news to hear from you, and I think that we really have to try to work together to find solutions to that. I mean, the transaction costs probably quite high there for the farmers to cover all those costs. And when we talk about really small acreage of land that they can contribute to these schemes, but would the farmers' organizations be forest owners' organizations be a solution here somehow, or the cooperatives, so that they could bring farmers, smallholders together and then act as a kind of a middleman?
Definitely, I think it's crucial to have the farmers and forest owners organization and cooperatives as an active actors here, and really bringing the voice of farmers and the grassroots level voice to this discussions. I think it's the only way to guarantee that it's like a mechanism which takes the grassroots level in, and the benefit comes to the farmers and forest owners.
Yeah. Good to hear. Did you wanted to add something else?
No, I just wanted to say, in the case of our work, we have sort of found that carbon compensation seems to be difficult for that very purpose because of the fact that it is not usually intended, or rather it's not necessarily directed towards the local level, the smallholder farmer. It tends to be this sort of abstract global system. And for that reason, since we do support the very, very earliest stages of setting up a business, it becomes quite difficult to actually engage in carbon compensation sometimes. We do have some very good cases where that has occurred, where, for instance, we have a company that we finance that produces sunglasses in Kenya, and they do carbon compensation for their products locally. So it does happen, even at a very early stage. Mind you, they've been in operations for, 2-3 years, I think, something like that. So it is possible to sort of bake that into your business model and then sell those products in the Finnish market. But it is not easy. It is also very complicated. And we have to understand that of the companies that we have financed, not very many of those businesses would necessarily understand what carbon compensation even means, honestly, because it is a very specialized topic. So making that more accessible, and I think that's where FFD has also done a very good job in actually, being one more organization doing actual, verifiable work in that field. So yeah.
Thank you. Anybody among the audience that would like to comment or raise a question? Now I think it's the time. I can see 2 hands up already. Ladies first, so I give the floor to Nora. I don't know where the microphone is at the moment, but maybe.
Checking if it works. Yes, good. Thank you very much. I think as the panelists called, reflections on the future path, and there is so much know-how all along the table now from the sectors of agriculture and forestry. I have to ask you that would you briefly comment that what is, in a short term now in near future, a growing trend or trending topic in the field of responsibility and sustainability in the sector of agriculture and forestry? Thank you.
Thank you. We will take the other question, and then I give the floor to the panelists.
Fred Stoddard, University of Helsinki, crop scientist. Sustainability to a crop scientist is a moving target. Every year, the science moves along. Anne mentioned how the stack of paperwork also moves along, and I didn't know that there was that aspect to it as well. So my question is about whether the certification or labeling of sustainability is at risk of becoming about the label rather than about the sustainability. Can the labeling keep up with, at least a couple of years behind the science? Or do we just have a new brand that the consumer has to decide, well, do I believe it or not?
Yeah, 2 very tricky questions. So, who would like to start with this question of what is trending in the near future in the field of sustainability and responsibility? Eelis, please.
Yeah, maybe one thing that is certainly trending, I think, is that the legal environment is changing. On the EU level, for instance, especially I'm now talking about import of agricultural products and forestry products as well, the legal environment is changing. Previously, obviously it's becoming a lot more stringent for large enterprises, but even for SMEs, it's becoming very complicated sometimes to navigate. And we do a lot of work in actually trying to inform our clients about that. The fact that you need to look up these changes now, and you have to start baking them into your business model, because it's never going to get easier afterwards. It's always going to get more stringent, most likely. So that would be certainly a trend that we see, and also one that SMEs find very difficult, where we try to help them, of course, as well.
Yeah, Kati, you wanted to add?
Yeah, there are a lot of happening in sustainability, but I would also add food security. I think there are so many cases globally, this food security, and even in Europe it's now a hot topic. Not to mention in for example, in Africa, where it has been a long time. But I think that due to the many logistical crises we have had recently, during the recent years, I think that in the sustainability, the local food systems, the developing of the local food systems, that they are resilient and there are local farms, local value chains to produce food for the local people, it will be even more important in the near future than it has been previously. And to the other questions, I want to add that this is really, really, really important thing to notice, that yes, in sustainability, it's not a black and white. It's not like a clear line whether you are sustainable or you are not sustainable. But there are multiple dimensions. And as mentioned, that science develops all the time, and also the practices in farm level changes all the time. So it's not an easy topic to say that, okay, you are sustainable, but you are not. But it can be, and there are different routes to sustainable production.
Yeah, I understand this question also, that we established a labeling system, sustainability labeling, for example, and we have certain requirements for that, certain standards that have to be met. But these standards, once we get that system up and running, these standards, they change.
Exactly.
Because there will be more information, more knowledge, more results from research.
Yeah.
And then they change, and we have just learned to use that one certificate or that one label. And so how do we deal with that?
Maybe I'll just continue. Yeah, I can confirm what Eelis said, is that the legal requirements, they are there now, and what happens in EU has great implications all over. I once asked in one conference that, has anyone actually estimated the price cost that all the requirements coming from EU sustainability legislation, how will they influence the end price for a consumer? Nobody knows. But in my bubble, in the DFI, Development Financing Institute world, I think what is very much emerging is then the nature and biodiversity topic. We've been discussing a lot here about climate, but those two crises, they are already very much on our agenda, and the financiers are trying to get a grip of the topic. It's even more complicated than climate. Climate has been for financiers, and how it took 20 years to get where we are now with the climate, and we should be much quicker with the nature and biodiversity. So there's a lot of going on there, and this MLR example from Nicaragua is actually our way of trying to combine those two critical sustainability topics. So that is what's happening, and maybe something that's very much linked also to smallholder farmers is also then the adaptation part, because that's what we are seeing now in our agri investments, that the climate shocks are hitting hard the companies, and those relying on smallholder supply chains are actually at great risk, because smallholders are not that prepared to the risks that are emerging.
I want to ask the organizers how much time we still have. 10 minutes, okay. So we can have maybe one more question from the audience, if any. I can see a hand there. Please give the microphone to Mariatta.
Yes, hello. I'm Mariatta Seläniemi from E2 Research. I think this is merely maybe a comment to the sustainability issue, and can we have a label? I also think that maybe, labeling something is maybe not the solution, but we could say that it's important to talk about the sustainability, like it's important to talk about the, for example, just transition to more climate-friendly and equal labor rights society and food systems. So I think that we should not only think about the target of perfect sustainability, but we should think about that the journey there, and that we talk about it and we discuss and we develop along the way is as important. And just a small note that in Finland we have now done it's like a just transition tool. It's done by a research program called Just Food, funded by the Finnish Academy. You will find it in the reiluustyökalu.fi. It's now only in Finnish, but it will also be in English, and it's meant for companies and actors for self-adjustment of just transition and sustainability issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Marietta, for that. Anybody wants still to elaborate this issue on labeling? Kastory, have you come across with that in your work, in your current work, or in your previous work, or labeling all these different certificates? Have you got any experience on those?
My experience is we are developing many labels and certificates, and we are not sure how these are going to affect those who are going to abide to those, and for those who are going to the beneficiaries, because we are putting many labels and certificates. The costs of those they are not really stipulated. Yeah.
Thank you. So you have come across with this kind of jungle of all these different labels and certificates, and then which one to pick and
Yes.
and advance. It's a major issue and question when thinking about the price tag, for example. So Anne, please.
Yeah, as a financier, we are actually also using those labels, those certificates as a tool, because we can't be there on the ground ourselves all the time. We do monitor, we visit sometimes, but we also use the certifiers as a kind of a third party giving an opinion that are the practices really applied sustainable, and they can do it in a much more thorough manner than we can with our small resources as a Finnfund. So in that sense, it serves also a financier. The problem of course is that then who pays the cost for that our good night's sleep, in that sense that we can claim that we are sustainable. But we try to choose, we have selected a handful of certificates, the labels, which we tend to also think that they serve the market as well, that there's also that price premium coming from that certificate. So we try to be very selective. And as a positive note, I would say that many labels have recently actually worked towards more kind of applicable systems for smallholders, taking into better consideration also the smallholder limitations in accessing the schemes. And maybe this is just wishful thinking, but I hope that also the technological advancements, the artificial intelligence, and also improving georeference data could then help even more, building even better and more efficient systems that could serve also smallholders. So yeah, it's not an easy one, and I don't think that they are kind of a long-term solutions, those certificates, but at least now companies who are operating on export markets for EU, for example, certificate is actually also a safety net in that sense that they have something they can how they can demonstrate that they are actually sustainable, because we are also operating with companies which have products that are on the list. So it's a must, I would say, in some cases.
Just a quick one, and then I give you a chance for your kind of a last concluding comment. But
yeah, maybe we already a little bit touched upon this question of who should pay for the certification. Where does the burden of the cost actually lie? Where should it lie? And I can gladly say that a part of the cost burden can lie with us, with Finnpartnership, with our business partnership support financing, because if you have a Finnish company that is seeking to cooperate with a local farmers organization, smallholder farmers organization, and you need that type of certification, we can actually pay for part of that certification, and hence the burden of proof in terms of certification is actually moved up from the individual farmer, from the farmers organization, up the value chain as it should be. So we would like to see more of those projects. If you have any good leads, please tell me. Honestly, we would like to see as many of those as possible.
Great. I had many other questions on my list, but the discussion has been so vibrant and so many views have been reflected that I thought I just let them speak because they have already answered to many of those questions that I didn't even ask. That were coming on my list. But I give the kind of a chance for a last concluding remark, and now we really try to look into the future. We have seen many problems. We have been discussing many problems that the smallholder farmers and forest producers that they face nowadays. But let's try to see some positive developments. What is positive? When we think about the next 10 years of FFD's work, FFD has now 10 years of work behind, 10 years ahead of us. What positive is going to happen during the next 10 years? Who would like to start? What are there any new innovations that look very prominent? Is something happening in our societies and in the planet that puts more value to smallholder farmers and forest producers' work? What's going to happen? Let's look at the next 10 years. And Kati wanted to start.
Yeah, I want to start from the perspective of farmer organizations. I think nowadays when we have more ways to communicate and go over different kind of time zones or whatever like distances, I think that having more and more cooperation between farmer organizations from different countries, it really is valuable, and it strengthens the family farmers and forest owners' voice globally. But it's also in our responsibility in the farmer organizations in national level, but also in global level, in international level, that we have to prove that we are strong, we are reliable, we are democratic, we listen to each other, we interact, and also the positions are made together in a sustainable perspective, so that we think of future, not only today's needs. So I think this is really prominent, and I have felt in the World Farmers Organization that we have been improving so much interaction and understanding each other throughout the years what I have been working in international fora. So that's really prominent, and I think that in many platforms, farmers' voice, they want to hear it, and it's respected. And that's also in our responsibility, that what kind of message we share.
Thank you so much. Eelis?
In terms of future trends, in terms of innovations, I hesitate to say that we would be the innovators, because usually the donor side is not where the innovations necessarily come from. We are reactive to that change. We are facilitators of that change. But in our case, for instance, I certainly think that the innovations come from the local partners and from our clients. In terms of our projects, that is. What we need to do is, of course, continue the information services related to this work, sustainability work that we've already been doing quite a bit of, and the support services we do. But I think I would love to see more projects where companies work directly with NGOs, with organizations like FFD. As a proud alumnus of FFD, I see the knowledge and information that is present there, and which is not present in a lot of private sector businesses. So I would love that information sharing to continue and become more deep in the future. And also I would love love to see more projects that deal holistically with the whole value chain, and import projects especially. Those are usually the ones where there can be a lot of impact to different stages of the whole process. So those are maybe my two pet peeves that I would love to see more. Yeah, I think the innovations come from those actors seeking to make change and come up with new novel solutions. And the private sector is very active in that. And there is a lot of capital there to be mobilized. And we try to facilitate the mobilization of that capital. But I think the true innovations come there. No question about that.
Thanks a lot. What about Kastory? What positive do you think that we will see during the next 10 years? What positive development?
I see that for the farmers to produce commercially, there is no way that they can escape from the reality of the requirements of the market. That for them to sustain their commercial production and their livelihood, they have to make sure that they meet the requirements of the market. Otherwise, they will not do business. And the other thing that I see is that the farmers' organizations are growing and becoming stronger, and becomes the good link between the producers and the buyers. And they are providing their crucial role of service to their members.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's very valuable statement. And Anne, would you like to still...
Okay, you're asking me to become philosophical, right?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. I think that a human being is a very creative, innovative creature. But that creativeness tends to truly flourish when there's a crisis on. We have many of them. So I hope, for my children's sake, that there will be many kind of innovations. They are there bubbling under. We just need to find them and scale them up. So yes, I think it will happen. And the positive sign of that is already that sustainability is becoming mainstream. Everybody's talking about it. Everybody's trying to figure out what it is. And then in the longer run, I hope that we will see the signs already in next 10 years. I hope that any investment made is not measured only with financial success and terms and the financial return, but also the other benefits, other gains will be measured and integrated into any investment we make. We consider all aspects, not only money.
Thank you so much. I think we will give a big hand to the panelists. Thank you very much, Kati, Eelis, Kastory and Anne. I would have continued for hours and hours, but we have certain time limits. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.